And the debate goes to the House tomorrow, and let's bring in right now two very outspoken members of the House of Representatives. Florida Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz joins us live from Miami, and Republican Congressman Michael Burgess is in Dallas. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. Congressman Burgess, let's start with you. You were quoted recently saying that the case on Syria is thin. You heard what happened at the hearing today. We also learned tonight that your colleagues in the Senate drafted a new resolution limiting authorization for action in Syria to 90 days maximum. Does any of this sway your opinion, or are you still a likely no vote?
Well, I'm still a likely no vote. I suppose it's interesting that the authorization for force that was put forth by the administration over the weekend when we had the classified hearing was really pretty broad, and yet at the same time, the activity or the action proposed was described as a pinprick or a shot across the bow. Well, which is it? Or is it a shot across the bow, or is it an all-out assault on Bashar Assad? And, you know, look, I don't think that cruise missiles launched at runways and his military installations are really going to change his mind much one way or the other the following day. But I can guarantee you this, Saddam Hussein will never use chemical weapons against his own people again. That's perhaps the type of attitude that ought to be taken toward Bashar al-Assad. Oh,
okay. I see what you're saying. I misunderstood when you mentioned Saddam Hussein. Congresswoman, I want to bring you in here. You mentioned on CNA that there are, quote, dozens of countries ready to stand with the U.S. on military action. Right now, we only really know of a handful. Can you tell us, or in any sense, guide us towards which countries you're talking about in terms of dozens? And why is there so much secrecy surrounding potential allies?
Well, my understanding from the briefings that we've been given is that there are dozens of countries that are ready to stand behind the United States politically, diplomatically, and militarily. We have some countries that will participate with us militarily, and again, dozens of countries that are ready to be supportive in a variety of ways. But you know, I think what's important here is making sure, one, particularly given you know, Senator Rubio, my colleague from Florida's comments, that we put politics aside. You know, straddling the precarious fence of trying to criticize President Obama while at the same time also acknowledge that we have national security interests in the region is not the appropriate approach to be taking. What we need to do here is ask ourselves some questions as members of Congress. We have an opportunity to debate this authorization. Are national security interests in question? Yes. No question that our ally Israel, Jordan, Turkey, they would be in jeopardy potentially if there is not a certain and severe response from the United States against Assad's use of chemical weapons.
And let me get Congressman Burgess to weigh in. Do you agree with that? Are U.S. national security interests at stake in the region?
Well, if they are, then a limited launch of cruise missiles that you announce well in advance is not going to achieve the desired effect. And I'd too be interested in knowing the countries that are going to be standing with us, because that has been problematic. It's like we've got a coalition of the invisible here.
Congresswoman,
well, Dr. Burgess, you were at the classified briefing the other day, like I was, and it was pretty clear and laid out for us which countries were ready to stand with us militarily. I'm certainly not comfortable sharing that on national television, but you know, the bottom line here is that we do have national security interests in jeopardy, and we have interests in the region that must be protected. I certainly don't want Israel to be next, or Jordan or Turkey to be next, and have the stability of the region further degraded. And then there is the moral imperative that we have as the strongest nation on earth to respond when a dictator like Assad violates a nearly 100-year international norm against using chemical weapons as a legitimate weapon of war. There were, as I said yesterday, and I've said for the last several days, you know, as a mother, to me, I have an indelible, searing imprint on my mind after seeing the pictures of those babies lined up. And we have a moral responsibility to respond, and it's essential that we use our deterrent ability to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Congressman, do you think that the United States has a moral imperative here?
Well, look, it took 18 years to hold Saddam Hussein accountable for his use of gas against the Iranians and his own people. So the moral imperative may take longer than a weekend to play out. But here's the problem, Jake. I don't see how you've made anything any different with the strike that's been proposed. What will make a difference is if you enforce regime change in Syria, and apparently that's not one of the options. The boots on the ground, although there was a little bit of ambiguity in the Senate hearing, it is not one of the options. So sending cruise missiles into an airfield in Damascus may make everyone feel better, but it's at the end of the day, you're not accomplishing a change.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear here. There was no ambiguity about whether boots on the ground would be in question. There will be no boots on the ground. Secretary Kerry made that very clear, and in fact went so far as to say that he would be supportive, that the administration is supportive of specifically including language in the resolution that prohibits the boots on the ground. So let's not try to lead the people astray here or create ambiguity where it doesn't exist.
All right, Congresswoman Wasserman.
Trying to lead people astray, but the problem is, if you're not willing to have the follow-through, how are you going to affect a change in the leadership of Syria? You're not going to do it from the Mediterranean with cruise missiles.
Some of the heated debate we expect to hear in the House of Representatives tomorrow. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz, Congressman Burgess, thank you so much for joining.